Well, this is one of those passages in the Bible that has about everything in it going on. It's got an idea of different countries. It's got a complication of different people. It's got different religions happening or non-religions. It's got a struggle of health issues. It's got an issue of political and versus religious leaders, and then you've got religious leaders versus other religious leaders. So this is the personification of America's plight in today's culture. It's there. Everything is there. I mean, I couldn't believe how much it was. The other thing that I think is kind of interesting about this passage is that is all that goes on in it, and you get to the very end, and there's a story about Jesus saying, "Shh, be quiet. Don't tell anybody." These people would have made really good Methodists. We're pretty good about keeping quiet, and they say Methodism sometimes is its own best-kept secret. We know about it, but we just don't tell other people often about it. And what Methodism does on a global scale, in local levels, and even in places where there's devastation, UMCOR, United Methodist Committee on Relief, is already there working in places that have been hit so hard from even Hurricane Fred. Just recently in Western North Carolina, Lake Junaluska is being used as one of the staging grounds for FEMA and the response from the wider authorities. So Methodism is literally at work in a way in responding to that. It's happening, but we just don't tell people. We just don't let others know about it. And so we're good at that. We took that line out of verse 36, 37, and we did really good with that. But sometimes I don't think that's exactly what was intended. In the Gospel of Mark, there's this idea that scholars have suggested to us of the messianic secret. That Jesus, for some reason, didn't want everybody to be told in a very long way, a bold way, about who he was and what was going on. Perhaps it was his own understanding and beginning to live into that ministry and who he was, but then as a human side of him, but perhaps the divine side of him knew fully what was going on, and perhaps knew that everybody wouldn't understand and couldn't understand what was happening, and so they needed a little bit more time. So you understand, and that's good, but give some other people a chance to get along with us and to understand. Perhaps I don't know exactly. But in this stories, and by this point in the Gospel of Mark, we've heard of miracles of feeding, of healing, of Jesus taking on temple authorities and religious authorities. I mean, he's not scared to go against the grain in a good way for people and for love and grace to be able to change people's lives and to touch people's lives. He's willing to go on and take on the religious orders and laws that have been established. Even this interaction between the Syrophoenician woman about her daughter who was possessed with a demon, and we don't understand that in our modern 21st century minds about exactly what might be happening there, but we know that she was bold to go to Jesus. And for culturally speaking, she was a woman and addressed a great teacher. She was outside the Jewish faith. He was a Jewish leader, Jewish teacher. I mean, these folks didn't really interact at all. And even this Jesus saying that the dogs, eat the crumbs, and this interaction between the dogs and is kind of just weird. It doesn't sound like the Jesus I know, and I don't understand his response in that way. But what I think is awesome is her response back to him. Some commentators said that she actually used his words and his argument and persuasive methods is the way that he would use them in Scripture. And so maybe perhaps she had done her background research. You know how it is when they tell you you're going to do an interview or begin to apply for a job, that you should at least learn something about what the company and what the people and what the school and what they're about. You don't just walk in cold turkey and start telling everything. You have to take a little time and do a little research. So she sounds like she had done that. And she had also heard about the healing and the way that he could care for people. And so she was bold enough to go to him. and to have this interaction with him. And he listens to her, and he heals, he provides, he gives her what she needs most and what her daughter needs for healing. And he doesn't even have to go there. I think that's part of the amazing part of this, and maybe in our minds that's helpful to hear, that Jesus doesn't have to physically be present with us to be able to change the situation in the world that we live in. And this man, now I got to kind of, every commentator that I looked at talked about how that on a map this route wouldn't have been really possible. He's here, he's on this side, he's moving this way and that way, and it said that his travel wouldn't make any sense. I said, if y'all would talk to my dad, he doesn't ever think I go the right way to the restaurant, or I always go backtrack. I remember growing up, they were worried about me because I refused to go to the same way twice. If I went somewhere, I would go one way, and on the way home, I would go a different way. I said no one could ever follow me or capture me because I was evading the authorities, and so but my dad, he's pretty straightforward. Quickest way to get there and back is the way he's going to go. If it involves a 4-lane highway, he's going to take it. That's him. Me, there's trees and shade, and you might see something. I love the little line about it. It's not the curves in the road that makes life. It's not the journey that makes life worth living. It's the curves in the road. It makes kind of this meander sometimes that we can do. But the commentators, they said there's no way, there's no real understanding and no reason for him to go this twisted way. And perhaps what Mark is showing to us is that this gospel and these stories take place in a lot of different situations and a lot of different places. That's perhaps what they're saying. It's not a logical, analytical analyzation of the journeys. It's this meandering, and Jesus is somehow in multiple places at the same time, affecting and changing people. But this man who has trouble speaking, who can't hear, and Jesus takes him aside. And some of you, I've been around long enough, you've heard me preach this. This is one of those stories that makes my skin crawl. I don't want anybody spit in my ear or on my tongue. I just not, no. No. But that's what Mark tells us. That's what the story is. Jesus took him aside, healed him, touched him. I don't know how and why. That's the thing with miracles, and some of you have also heard me say that is, it's not that I don't believe they didn't happen in the Bible. It's that it frustrates me that I don't get to see them more and more in our world and in our everyday living. That troubles me. And I don't know. I mean, I think they still occur. They still happen. There's still things that aren't going the way that science or goes the way that normal expectations would expect it. There's some type of change, interaction, and influence that changes a situation with, for, and through sometimes. So I give that to God oftentimes when it goes and changes somebody's life, their health, that we can't just understand at all. And I think miracles happen. I just don't know why they can't happen more. Perhaps that's my selfishness, and I'm working through that. Be able to trust God and to let God do God's thing, and me back off and let God do God's thing, and not have to be an advisory department to God. It's hard sometimes because I want to control things. I want things to go the way I think they need to go. And that's not what living in faith means. We have to let go and let God work God's way in the world. But for this guy, his life changed forever. There was a transformation of his life and what he was able to do. And Jesus looks at him after he's healed and after he can hear and after he can speak. And he says, shh, don't tell. Don't tell. Keep it down. And his friends had seen what had happened. I mean, it's not like it was been a week or two and there was a pandemic and you couldn't get around anybody and know it. There were people around. And so they knew that the guy walked off and he couldn't talk, and he walked back and he could. It's a radical transformation. And Jesus says, shh, don't tell. And what do? Like good humans, they don't listen. They don't even fully listen to him. What's amazing is that the man that is healed to be able to speak and to talk understood what was going on, that he had been healed and he wanted to tell others about it. Perhaps the disciples in Mark are a little bit clueless oftentimes. It kind of is a thread that goes through the Gospels. Other people around Jesus are catching what's going on. They're understanding, they're hearing what he's teaching, they're doing, and their lives are being transformed. And the disciples that are closest to Jesus don't have a clue. Although they have all of the gifts and the abilities to understand and to see, they don't have a clue what's going on. They don't fully understand. But these other people that are coming in, they're seeing things in a new way, with a new light. And so they're able to tell and to share. Perhaps we as Jesus' modern 21st century disciples need to hear that again. The things that we are looking for, the things that we hope for, need a little bit of insight with people that aren't so familiar with what we expect from faith and what we expect from church and what we expect from the world. We need to hear these new eyes and these new ears and new lips for singing and saying, and to be able to reach out to others and to announce and to say what God has done for us and in our lives and in our world. Despite the frustrations, despite the ongoing pandemic, that we're able to understand Christ is in our midst. And Christ continues to work in a way to bring hope in the world. Perhaps it would behoove us to be a little louder witness of the trust and the determination that we realize that we're going to get through this, that God will eventually bring us through, that we care for one another, that we go above and beyond to care for people. One of my friends out in Colorado, he was so funny the other day. He's like, on Facebook, his post was, the period, mask, period, goes, period, over, period, your, period, knows, period. I get it. I get it. I'm like, just wear the mask so we can get this behind us. Do what we need to do to care for other people. Reach out. Go just a little beyond the extra mile to make people feel connected and understand. I said I was going to run a few people down I hadn't seen lately. And so I'm glad to be able to know that people are there and that people are doing okay. And if I don't see folks, I need to check in. And I reminded myself more of that. What do you maybe think of things that you might be able to do that could transform the way that the world sees us in action, and the way that we might share what God has done for us and in our lives, and to be reminded of that goodness, that grace, that salvation and grace that's been given to us, and share that with others. Not just having enough religion to make us miserable, but to make us people who go forth into the world to share God's love in all that we do. All glory, honor, and power be to the one who was, who is, and who is to come. Amen.